Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And hi everyone, I am Miss Azian, and inshallah in today's video we are going to look at past continuous tense, its forms or structures, and also the functions of when and how do we use past continuous tense, in what context do we use past continuous tense. So we are going to look at those as we go through the slides, okay? And I'll give you more examples and more explanation on the context for you guys to understand it better, inshallah. Okay, let's look at the first slide. Okay, so to give you a brief idea of what past continuous tense is, so basically past continuous tense is used when you want to describe an ongoing action or an action that is still ongoing in the past. So meaning that an action that is still ongoing in the past, okay, it has already happened but it's ongoing. So when you want to describe that, you have to use past continuous tense. For example, I want to tell you guys what I was doing last night. So I would say, last night I was preparing the slides for you guys. Okay, so that is just to give you the brief idea of what past continuous tense is. So again, past continuous tense is used when describing an ongoing action or an action that is still ongoing in the past. Okay? Okay. Let's move on to the next slide. Okay. So before I dive in further into the explanation of past continuous tense, I would like to remind you guys about the verb to be forms of past continuous tense. So remember, we have two verb to be, right? Is and are. Is used for singular and are is used for plural noun. Okay. But for past continuous tense, remember, it is a past tense. So we use was or were. Whereas was is used with I, he, she, it. And also singular noun and also uncountable noun. And were is used with you, we, they, and also plural noun. So what about countable noun? Okay, so the verb to be form for countable noun, okay, it depends on whether the noun is singular or plural. If the noun is a singular noun, then you have to use the verb to be was. If the noun is plural, then you have to use the verb to be were. Okay, and always bear in mind that you, the noun you, is a special case. Okay, it is considered as plural, although it might be pointing to one person. So when you are using the noun you have to use the verb to be were, because it is a special case. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so in this slide, I will be explaining to you guys about the forms or the structures of past continuous tense. So we have three structures of past continuous tense. Okay. So the first one is affirmative, the second one is negative, and the third one is question. Okay, let's look at the first form, or the first structure, affirmative. Okay, the formula for affirmative form of past continuous tense is subject plus verb to be was or were plus verb plus ing. For example, the baby was crying all day. So the baby is the subject, and then you have the verb to be was, because the noun is singular, hence why we use the verb to be was. Okay, and then you have the action verb, cry, plus ing, all day. So the sentence would be, the baby was crying all day. So that is the example of affirmative form of past continuous tense. Okay, the second one is, they were playing outside all day. You have the subject they, and then the verb to be were, because they is a plural noun, hence why we use were. And then you have the action verb, play, plus ing, outside all day. They were playing outside all day. Okay, so that is the first form of past continuous tense. Okay, the second form of past continuous tense is negative form. Okay, so for negative form, you have to have subject plus verb to be was or were plus not plus verb ing. So you see the difference here. Okay, so to negate the sentence, or to make the sentence negative, you just simply have to add the word not. So not is like a magic word. Okay, so whenever you want to negate the sentence, you just add the magic word not, and boom, it became a negative sentence. Okay, let's look at the example. The audience was not clapping after the performance. So the audience is the subject, and then you have the verb to be was, and then you have the magic word not, and then you have the action verb plus ing after the performance. The audience was not clapping after the performance. The second example, they were not listening at all. So they is the subject, and then you have the verb to be were, because they is a plural noun, okay? And then you have the magic word not to negate the sentence, and then you have the action verb listen plus ing at all. So they were not listening at all. So that is the negative form or the negative structure of past continuous tense. Okay, let's look at the third structure or the third form of past continuous tense, which is question form. Okay, so for question form, you have to have was or were, okay, the verb to be at the front, plus subject, plus verb, plus ing. For example, was the baby crying when the thunder strike? Was the baby crying when the thunder strike? Okay, so was is the verb to be, the baby, okay, because the baby is a singular noun, hence why we use the verb to be was. So was the baby crying, the action verb plus ing, when the thunder strike? Was the baby crying when the thunder strike? Okay, so that is the question form or the question structure of past continuous tense. Okay, let's look at the second example. Were you watching the movie? Were you watching the movie? So you have verb to be were plus you. Remember, you is a special case, hence why we have to use were as the verb to be. And then we have the action verb plus ing, watching the movie. Were you watching the movie? Okay, so that is the question form of past continuous tense. Okay? Do you guys understand? Oh, and guys, I would like to add that for question form of past continuous tense, okay, it must be used within the context of when you want to know or when you want to ask about something happening at a time. Okay, say for example, your friend recommended you a movie. Okay, and then while you were watching the movie, your friend called you. Okay, and then you guys talk. And then the next day, you guys meet in the classroom, and your friend asks you, were you watching the movie when I called? Okay, so meaning that your friend is asking you about what was happening when she called you. Were you watching the movie when I called? Okay, so that is the context of when you use the question form of past continuous tense, because it differs from past simple, whereas past simple is used within the context of when you want to know about a completed action in the past. Okay, so remember, past simple is for completed action in the past, and meanwhile, past continuous is for action that is happening. Okay, about wanting to know about an action that is happening at a time. Okay, just like the example of the movie I have given to you just now. Okay, so now that I have explained to you about the forms or the structures of past continuous tense, let us move on to the functions of past continuous tense. So when do we use past continuous tense? Okay, first, past continuous tense is used when describing an action in progress at a specific time in the past. For example, at 8 p.m. last night, I was studying for my test. So this particular example or this particular sentence is describing what was happening at a particular moment in the past, meaning that at 8 p.m. last night, I was studying for my test. But teacher, can we say at 8 p.m. last night, I studied for my test? Is this sentence wrong? Okay, guys, remember, these two sentences are grammatically correct, but the context of the two sentences are different. Okay, whereas you use past continuous tense when you want to describe what was happening at a particular moment in the past. Okay, say for example, last night at 8 p.m. You were studying for an upcoming test. Suddenly, you heard a loud bang in your porch. Okay, so you want to tell your friend the next day. So you have to say, at 8 p.m. last night, I was studying for my test. Suddenly, I heard a loud bang. Okay, for example. Okay, so that is basically describing what was happening at a particular moment in the past. Whereas this sentence that use past simple, at 8 p.m. last night, I studied for my test. Okay, is describing a completed action. Okay, meaning that, at 8 p.m. last night, I studied. That's it. It started and ended. Okay, at 8 p.m. for example. Okay, but this one, at 8 p.m. you were still in the middle of studying, and then suddenly you heard a loud bang. Okay, so that's the difference. So if you want to describe what was happening at a particular moment in the past, you have to use past continuous tense because it is more suitable. Okay, the second function of past continuous tense is when you want to describe two actions happening at the same time in the past. For example, she was reading while they were playing. Okay, so this particular example or sentences is showing parallel actions. So what does parallel actions mean? Okay, parallel actions means two actions happening at the same time. Okay, so when you want to describe two actions that is happening at the same time in the past, you have to use past continuous tense. Say for example, okay, you were reading in your room. Okay, while you were reading in your room, your brothers were playing outside. Okay, yesterday, while you were reading in your room, your brothers were playing outside. So if you want to describe two actions happening at the same time in the past, you have to use past continuous tense. For example, she was reading while they were playing. Okay, so the example of the context for you guys to understand it better would be, okay, you went to school and then your friend asked you, hey, what were you doing yesterday? Okay, so you answer with, oh, yesterday I was reading while my brothers were playing outside. So you want to tell your friend that while you were reading in your room, your brothers were playing outside with their ball maybe. Okay, so that is that is like explaining parallel actions, two actions that is happening at the same time. Reading, she was reading while they were playing at the same time. In the past, yesterday, for example. Okay? Okay, now, the last or the third function of past continuous tense is it's used to describe background action that is interrupted by another action. Okay, so for example, we were sleeping when the earthquake struck. Okay, so from this example, you can see that for this particular function, it is often used with simple past for the interrupting action. Okay, so let me give you an example of a context through a storyline. Okay, say for example, one day, yesterday. Okay, yesterday, you and your sister were sleeping soundly in your room. Okay, you were sleeping soundly in your room with your sister, and then suddenly the earthquake struck, but you did not wake up. Okay, the earthquake struck, but you did not wake up. Okay, and so the next day, you went to school. Okay, and then your friend asked you, what happened yesterday? What happened yesterday? And so you want to tell your friend, oh, yesterday, me and my sister, we were sleeping in our room when the earthquake struck. So why do we use past simple for the interrupting action? Okay, because the earthquake struck while you and your sister were sleeping, and it ended also while you and your sister were sleeping. So hence why it became we were sleeping when the earthquake struck. So again, if you want to express or you want to describe an action that happened in the past, that was happening in the past, and the action was interrupted by another action, you have to use past continuous tense. For example, we were sleeping when the earthquake struck. So the earthquake struck and it ended while you were sleeping with your sister in the room. Okay, so yeah, that is basically all from me. I hope you guys understand what past continuous tense is. Thank you so much.